Here's Brody Brazil.
We got that update the other day on Tropicana Field and what it would take to fix the damaged roof after Hurricane Milton. About $56 million and at least a full year, meaning that the Tampa Bay Rays have to play somewhere else for the 2025 Major League Baseball season. And now there's this, the new stadium that the Rays were planning to build right next door to the Trop. Even that may now be delayed a year because of this damage, the repairs necessary, and some of the other uncertainty with Pinellas County about that new ballpark and the bonds necessary actually being approved. More on that in just a second. The Tropicana Field situation is getting a bit political. I'm not here to say that's a great thing or a bad thing, but it's certainly more of a complicated thing at this juncture. We know the long-term solution, thanks to a 400-plus page report, is going to cost about $56 million, of which $23.6 million are to fix the roof alone. Now, that 55.7 cost, it does include about $6.5 million, which has already been approved to begin the cleanup and the takeaway of the roof pieces and to waterproof the inside of the stadium so that further damage does not occur. But again, the problem here is that all of the repair to make Tropicana Field right and playable again for Major League Baseball, it won't even be ready until the 2026 Major League Baseball season at best. So the Rays are in a pinch. They're going to have to find a temporary home for 2025 and maybe beyond if this cost can't get met by insurance or FEMA or the city or the team. And here we go with a lot of the complications. Going back to that 412-page report, it says that the stadium appears to be structurally sound and could be returned to service. So that's the good news. They can logistically do this. It wasn't damaged beyond repair. The question is it kind of totaled like a car, where it's not worth the value of repair for the time left of the sports venue? Some assessments, though, that they made to try and figure out what's working and what's not, some of those assessments were visual only and actually require more testing. So actual repair costs, they say, could be substantially higher than $56 million, which is already a number that I worry about. Insurance is only going to, at best, cover 20-something million. So you can see the middle ground we're in here. But the fact that costs could be substantially higher is already of concern. The city is the landlord of Tropicana Field and is responsible for repairs, according to the Tampa Bay Times. Now, there was some previous information that said the Rays, as part of their lease, were responsible for anything past insurance, but it appears that the city, as landlord, is responsible for these repairs, and they have obviously already filed their insurance claim. Now, let's talk about that lost year option and the temporary situation for the Rays and why it might actually delay a new stadium as of right now by a full calendar year. Because the Rays lease at Tropicana Field, it actually gets extended if the stadium itself isn't suitable for play. That's in the original contract that they signed when they began playing baseball in Tampa. If the Trop isn't available, the lease gets put on pause, meaning that there's still 3 more years on the lease if they don't play, when they don't play at Tropicana Field for this upcoming season. And so now, because of that, there's been some talk and some discussion of maybe delaying the new stadium and the construction project by a full year to time out with that. And that's for a couple different reasons. Number one, I'm not sure you want a repair job and a brand new construction site side by side. But there's also county bonds in Pinellas County that have yet to be approved for the brand new stadium. There's a lot of things that are squared away and all settled for this new stadium to become a reality. But the bonds, as a responsibility of the county, have yet to get voted on. That is supposed to happen, I believe, in the next handful of days. But it's not a certainty that that new stadium is going to move forward as of right now. Groundbreaking was to take place in January, and still might, I suppose, if these bonds get approved. And maybe the destruction to the Trop, maybe it adds some motivation to get the new stadium and the wheels moving there. Or maybe it brings up more uncertainty about we need to spend on this and that at the same time. Maybe we should pump the brakes here on everything. Maybe we should punt and take this year option to figure out what it's going to look like when the dust settles. So groundbreaking, again, was about, 7-8 weeks away from right now. We'll see if that actually takes place and goes forward. But I think the main takeaway here is because 3 more years exist on the lease at Tropicana Field, it presents that option so that the Rays have a place to play for 1 more year if this upcoming year is kind of like a pause year on that lease. Ken Welch is the mayor of St. Petersburg. Here's what he said via the Tampa Bay Times about the estimate and about the timeline, the cost and the timeline. Quote, "My initial reaction is that it did fall on the lower cost side. And the fact that our folks think it could be done really quickly is a best case scenario for us." Now, I don't know if that's on the lower cost side. I mean, I sat here, made videos to wonder if the repair job could be $200 million. So yeah, 56, about a quarter of that, a little more than a quarter of that, that's a great thing. That it's not sky high that anybody expected. But the fact that we're talking tens of millions of dollars here that nobody's really going to want to pony up for, this isn't $5 million. This isn't something that you could do a GoFundMe for and scrounge up. This is still going to be a very difficult number to achieve, and the timeline is not great. It's not that quick. Quick would be the offseason. Quick is not displacing your Major League Baseball team for at least a full season. Welch goes on to say, quote, "We anticipate that the majority of the repair costs incurred by the city will be covered by insurance and FEMA reimbursements, making this approach both beneficial for community spirit and fiscally responsible for our community." End quote. Now, I don't know about FEMA reimbursements, but I can tell you some bad experiences I've personally had just in the insurance world and realm, and claims and things that were not your fault, but you did not get paid back or reimbursed as you should because of the damage done. And so here's where I'll begin the takeaways. Number one, like a funding shortfall and drama because of this, it almost feels inevitable. Let's say that insurance wants to cover $12 million. Okay, well, you still have $40+ million to figure out. And FEMA does kick in some, or they don't kick in some. I think to rely on FEMA and insurance to cover all of this and think you're set. I mean, the insurance coverage went from about $100 million recently to about $25 million recently. The city of St. Petersburg cut back on this because they thought there was no insurance need for the roof. Or a lesser insurance need for the roof at Tropicana Field. So the drama and the politics of this, and now that it's in the hands of the city and the county's involved on not approving the new stadium and the bonds for that, all of this feels like a huge political play. It feels inevitable that the money's going to come up short and that there's going to be more back and forth here. Like this story is not over today, tomorrow, or even next week. And the new stadium, which I know a lot of people had talked about as a lock. Well, it's been approved in the city and the county, and they're on board, but there still is a main vote to initiate the mechanics of the bonds that the county of Pinellas County is going to put out there to pay for this stadium and this development. That new stadium hinges on these bonds and that county vote, which is upcoming. And I wonder, because of now all this and understanding the cost and the timeline, again, I don't know if that's going to speed up the vote or make it go in the approval direction or the denial direction of floating these bonds. I also think that it might be in everybody's best interest to avoid two things at once. Like, let's say that they approve the stadium to be built right next door to the Trop. So that means in 2025, you would have groundbreaking right next to repair. You would have eventual construction going up and the repair job of Tropicana Field happening at the same time. Just imagine the optics of that. Wait, we're building this brand new thing here to spend hundreds of millions on it, and we're also at the same time spending $56 million to fix this up for, the 2 years until this is ready? You understand my point. Visually, if those two things are about to happen, or they are happening, I don't know that it's going to sit entirely well with taxpayers. Not only from a logistical perspective of two construction sites next door, but the optics of it from the public view. And I'll just close it out by saying, look, options here seem extremely limited for the Rays. What are they going to do? They're not in control of who's going to pay for this. I mean, honestly, maybe they should chip in something. I know they're not legally obligated to, so they're not going to, but they are so stuck in the middle in a situation where time is of the essence. They already know next year they got to play somewhere else. But at what point do they book their reservation from 1 year to 2 years to playing 3 or more temporary seasons at a minor league or a spring training complex. And now you're going to have 2 Major League Baseball teams in that identical situation and position, and the new stadium is not even a certainty yet. If ground had already been broken on the new Rays stadium, all of this is a lot less drama. But the same thing with the A's is happening to the Rays. They're thinking about building a bridge to somewhere else, but that destination on the other side of the bridge isn't even fully built out yet. There's no certainty that that new stadium gets built next door or where they'll play in the interim seasons. So these are further developments from what we know about Tropicana Field. It's messy. It's complicated. I'm telling you, I keep covering this because it is more of a story and more of a big deal than most people are even realizing right now because we're not in baseball season. It's the middle of the winter. Nobody's talking about this. But eventually they will because things like this don't happen very often, and there are a lot of moving pieces in the entirety of what's happening here. You've made it to the end of this video. Really appreciate that. Thumbs up down below. Also, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. That way I can definitely see you back here next time.